Hello, Demons Fae, and those in between. This is Dizzy, and I'll be returning to A Thing with Wings by PaperPuffin. This will be the last episode containing chapters 26, 27, and 28. I am really excited to get started, so I'm just going to go ahead and do just that. Tim had been poked and prodded and tested. He had listened to lectures from various Yeti about ghostly topics. He had met with Frostbite and Danny, and someone almost unknowable called Clockwork. He had seen a ghost psychologist, and he had trained and learned and practiced. He could fly, a bit dubiously. He could go invisible and intangible, mostly at will, and he could turn back into a human, no wings included. And now it was time. "Is it weird that it feels weird going home?" Tim asked. He wasn't fidgeting. He wasn't. But his wings were maybe fluttering slightly. Danny's own wing moved to curl around him. "No, Hummingbird. It makes perfect sense to me. You've changed. Home will be different for you now. That's not bad or good. It just is." "How do I deal with it?" "By relying on those you're closest to," Danny said. "I had my two best friends and my sister. They helped me deal with it. They also made things harder sometimes, but that's just life. You have so many people you can count on with your family and friends that you'll be fine. And you also have me." "Thanks," Tim said. He took a deep breath. He didn't exactly breathe right then, and nodded. "Okay, let's go home." At the words, Danny reached out and sliced a tear through reality as if it was nothing. It was fascinating to watch. Maybe if Tim asked nicely, Danny would let Tim take some readings of the effect sometime. They might be able to revolutionize the Zeta tubes with it, and who knows what else. Tim shook the thoughts away as Danny gently nudged him forward with his wing. Going through the portal felt, for a moment, like being covered in the fuzz of static electricity. There was also this pull in the center of Tim's chest, like something didn't want him to leave the infinite realms. When he stepped through, it felt like something popped, like those toys you press into the table and that pops up when the spring constant overcomes the friction. Tim wondered if Danny felt it too. On the other side, Tim's family was waiting. All of them, even those that weren't family officially. Steph's smile looked a little watery. Tim made sure to smile back. Alfred was the first to speak. "Welcome home, Master Tim." Bruce, never good with words when it mattered, just opened up his arms. Tim barreled into the hug without a thought. Can I go human?" Tim asked. "Of course," Danny answered, hearing the question even as muffled by Bruce's warm turtleneck as it was. "Just remember your lessons and don't rush it." Tim nodded, closed his eyes, and took one of those breaths that he didn't need. He had to focus inside himself, to his core. He still wasn't sure what that was exactly, but he thought of it like centering himself during meditation. And then he sort of flipped his personal reality. There were gasps and little noises from the group as a sensation of cold washed over Tim, and then it faded. He'd opened his eyes and breathed. "Do we need to do anything about the wounds you received in this form?" Bruce asked and pulled back enough to look Tim in the eyes. "Nope. Seems Danny's whole saving me thing did most of it. I've got a pretty fresh scar still, but it's hardly anything," Tim said. Bruce closed his eyes and did one of his patiently breathing things. "Hardly anything," Jason parroted. "Kid goes and dies and says it's hardly anything." "Well, not all of us are theater kids like you," Tim said, back with a saccharine smile. Cass stepped forward and clapped her hands once. "Cake." Tim immediately let himself be distracted. "There's cake?" Glad you are only mostly dead, Cake," Cass confirmed with a nod. "Amazing. I'm starving. I haven't eaten in like a week. I mean, I didn't need to, but... Tim said. He pulled back from Bruce, very ready to head to wherever the cake was. As soon as they started off, though, he stopped. Something was wrong. Danny? Aren't you going to change and come have cake? Danny smiled crookedly, sadly. I better head out or something. You said you'd come with me to the manor and stay for dinner. Tim hated how much he sounded like a kid right then, but Danny had said he'd be there. He'd be there for Tim coming back and telling Bruce, and for the ghost part. Danny couldn't go now. It's just, I've been in this form for too long. Changing back isn't going to be pretty, and I want you to enjoy being home, Danny explained. If I may, Master Danny, I'm certain that pretty or not, everyone would rather you stay close, Alfred said in his "this is not a suggestion" tone. Please stay, Tim begged. He couldn't do this alone. Not any of it. Danny ducked his head. Right, okay. Close your eyes. Why? Dick asked, right before there was a flash of light, a noise of breathless pain, and the sound of a body hitting the floor. Danny! Danny drifted slowly into waking. The world felt soft. Or maybe it was simply the sheets. No, it was more than that. There was just the right amount of pressure on his legs, against his side, even pinning one arm. The right amount of soft, shifting sound. The right amount of light. Things hadn't felt this right in too many years. With a little snuffle, Danny pressed his face closer against some of the lovely warmth. Soft fingers carted through his hair. Feathers? Whichever. Are you actually awake this time? No. Danny mumbled stubbornly. The voice gave a little snort of amusement. You just want to avoid the conversation. What conversation? Danny asked the voice before he gave into a jaw-cracking yawn. The passing out on the floor because you're an idiot conversation? A new voice groused. Oh, it was the fruit crow. Poor bird. Danny hoped that frostbite could help him. Jason. A true owl reprimanded from close by. Though he's not wrong. We need to talk about that. Owl, owl, owl. The false owls. Tim! Danny shot up from the soft nest and quickly regretted everything. Sharp pain lanced through him. A cuss was caught in his teeth, hissed out as a breathless gasp of air as his back spasmed. Father? The chickadee sleepily asked. It will be all right, Damien. Danny, I know it must hurt, but you have to try and relax, the voice said. Those same soft hands worn by years of handling the world rubbed at Danny's back, just under his wings and right where the muscles were cramping. Fingers pressed in expertly, and Danny just about collapsed back onto the bed with a wheeze. Jason. Already getting them, old man, the fruit crow, Jason said. Danny, which of your medications do you need right now? Muscle relaxant, too, Danny managed to say. Those ones, Hummingbird said, sleep still clinging to his voice. There were the sound of bottles and pills moving around before Danny was moved upright again. He bit back a scream. The pain was still radiating even as he was guided to lean back against what must have been Bruce's chest. Danny wasn't even fully upright, but it was still enough that tears squeezed through his tightly clenched eyes. Bruce wiped them away. I know. A hand pressed against Danny's mouth, and he tried to recoil out of instinct. Sorry, Dick said. Open up, okay? Just 2 muscle relaxants and then water. Even swallowing felt like effort, but Danny managed to get the pills down. It left him panting in pain. His left arm twitched with phantom, still not funny, jolts of electricity. We found your daily pill case. Can we give you everything from the evening slot for today? Dick asked. Yeah, need to get back, Danny managed before he had to swallow through another full-body jolt of pain. Sorry, back on them. Okay, that's next then. Just them and then more water, Dick said. Danny was ready for the hand this time, and it was easier to swallow the pills back. Dick's voice piped up again a moment later. That's a great idea, Cass. Some of those rice ones, okay? That'll be easiest right now. I will go with, Damien said. His talons were feet. Damien had feet. His feet were light as the two of them left the nest. And it hurt to have them gone. No, it shouldn't. They weren't his fledglings. They weren't fledglings. They weren't fledglings and weren't his, and it wasn't a nest. It was okay that they were gone. Besides, they would come back and it would be fine. Bruce's fingers were on Danny's back again, working the jolts of pain away with expert fingers. Danny made himself focus on the touch instead of the feelings of need and hurt and want and loss, and Damien and Cass came back with blissfully warm hot packs that were tucked around Danny as he was settled back into the bed. Soft. It was okay. His muscle relaxants would kick in, and the pain would fade, and it would be okay. It would be okay. He's out again. Bruce hated that he was grateful for that fact, but he was. It was hard to watch Danny be racked with pain like that. He was scared, Tim said. His knees were pulled tight to his chest. Cass had curled protectively against Tim's side. Their heads rested against each other. He glanced up at Bruce as he clarified. When Cass and Damien left, he was scared. I think that maybe we had better stay close for a bit. Jason snorted. He wasn't on the bed, other than his heels resting on the corner of it, but he was still there, and that counted for a great deal. Timbit, you sort of died on us. I don't think any of us are planning to go anywhere for a bit. Oh. Please don't be so surprised, Dick said. His hands twitched like he wanted to reach out, pull Tim close, and never let go. It was probably only the fact that Damien was resting against him that stopped Dick. It's not like it's the first time any of us have... And you, of all people, know how poorly we handle that, Bruce said. He brushed his fingers through Tim's hair. We were scared. All of us. Then when Duke found out that it was the Court of Owls... Bruce made me wait for backup, Duke said. He was on the edge of the bed, fiddling with his phone. Because we would have been just as scared to lose you, Bruce said firmly. Duke blinked back. Oh. Oh my God, you all need hugs! Dick gave up on staying still and lunged for Duke, taking him down with a flail and a squawk. You're my little brother too. Of course we'd be fucked up if something happened to you. We were beyond fortunate to have Jason come back to us. Bruce was sure to meet Jason's eyes as he said that. Usually, miracles only happen once. To have you still with us, Tim, after that, I was afraid when the signals disappeared, when all we found was blood. I thought that I would have to bury another son. But you seem really calm, Tim pointed out. I'm compartmentalizing, Bruce said honestly, and with a wry smile. Right now, I have a job to do in making sure that everyone is all right. Maybe don't break down alone this time, Dick suggested. He was still wrapped tightly around Duke and had somehow gotten Damien into the hug too, so his words were a little muffled. Bruce raised a pointed brow. If you agree not to, then I will too. Ugh, fine, Dick agreed with a sigh. I'll look after the idiot, Jason promised and nudged Dick and his cuddle pile with his foot. I can so escape you. You can fucking try. Can too. Can fucking not. Boys, Bruce said fondly and held Danny a little tighter. Okay, that was the end of chapter 26. I'm just gonna go ahead and go on to chapter 27. I feel like some sort of sickly Victorian maiden, Danny said as Bruce lifted him from the bed. He rested a hand against his forehead. Woe is me, I've been sent to the seaside for rest and fresh air. I don't know if the horde of children is normally a part of that package, Bruce replied. A few different hands emerged from the mess of pillows and sheets to flick Bruce off, which made Danny laugh. It felt good to laugh after having spent the last few days in unconsiderable amounts of pain. He was still in a huge amount of pain, but the drugs were working through his system now, and his soul was warmed by the horde and haunt alike. He tried not to think too much on that last part. No, but I like the horde, Danny said. Thanks, Ghost Dad. Tim yawned. Yeah, thanks, Ghost Dad. Stephanie? When did you get here? She hummed from somewhere near the foot of the bed. Early morning, I guess, after, Right, well, maybe you can take another child with you to go see about breakfast? Bruce suggested over his shoulder as he carried Danny towards the bathroom. Danny rested his head against Bruce's shoulder. Thank you, he said softly. For what? Bruce asked. For letting me into your home, letting me close to your family. I know how important they are to you, and it means a lot to me. Especially as a ghost, Danny said. Is this another thing to talk about when we go into deeper details about being a ghost? Bruce asked before adding, and you're welcome. It will be, yeah, Danny agreed. He knew that Bruce or the children wouldn't be upset at him for his ghostly needs, but he didn't want to cause them any unease over it either. It was bound to at least be awkward. All right, Bruce said, and pressed a kiss to Danny's temple before setting him down on the counter. But first cleaning up, and then there are some Wayne things that you should know about. It's past time, actually, for you to know about them. Do you think you're up for a shower? You don't have to stand. There's a bench seat. Danny tilted his head, curious about Bruce's words, but he did his best to stay focused. A shower sounds downright hedonistic right now. Bruce chuckled and moved to turn the water for it to warm up. A shower it is, then. And wow, did a shower feel amazing. It was a little weird at first to need Bruce's help getting clean, but Bruce's touch was gentle and intimate in a way that settled Danny's nerves. After drying off after one very long shower later, Bruce slipped out of the bathroom in a robe, only to come back with a stack of clothing sitting on a wheelchair. A wheelchair? Danny asked, head tilted. No, I mean, that makes sense for me, but you just have a wheelchair lying around? Dick was a very active child, Bruce said, with a tired resignation of a parent who had seen it all. The easiest way to keep him off an injury was to put him in a wheelchair. It became a thing to keep in the manor's medical supplies. Danny chuckled as he put on the clothing that Bruce passed him. It worked for Jason and Stephanie too, didn't it? Oh, absolutely, Bruce said with a little smirk. It still works on Dick. Of course it does. I don't know if it'll work on me, but I can't go far anyways, Danny said. He accepted Bruce's help into the chair and sank gratefully into the surprisingly comfortable seat. He hated that he was exhausted by a simple shower, but he was exhausted. Bruce kissed his cheek. Remember, you're a sickly Victorian maiden. Let yourself be taken care of. Well, in that case, onward to breakfast, my good man. Your wish is my command. And onward they went, down a tucked-away elevator that Danny assumed had been put in for Barbara, who had shown up for the meal. The table was full of chatter, stolen food, and so much life. Danny didn't have the energy to participate much, but it didn't matter when he was surrounded by all of that. Best of all, Tim didn't seem hindered in least from what he had been through. He was still Tim, just with a little extra. It was better than Danny could have hoped for when he found Tim on the edge of death due to those damned false owls. Tim stopped what he was doing and jerked his head towards Danny so suddenly that the rest of the table froze. It was like everything had died away, and Danny hated it. "I'm okay, Hummingbird," Danny tried to soothe. "I was just thinking that I have some cleanup to do once I'm well enough." Tim frowned. "You're going after the Court of Owls?" "Is that what they're called? I like false owls better," Danny admitted. "False owls?" Dick asked. "Why are they false?" Danny blinked at Dick. "Because they aren't real. Not like you are. Sorry, that's..." Danny rubbed at his eyes. "Ever since this transformation of mine started, I've been thinking of certain people in terms of birds. I hadn't really put it all together until after everything." "Put what together?" Dick asked. Am I an owl?" Danny hummed in confirmation as he tried to put everything into words that they could understand. "Ghosts and Hathas aren't immune from it. We just get away with more. But we have haunts, just like you would think in a traditional sense, a place or sometimes a thing that we are attached to. Along with our haunts, we might form fraids, a group of people or souls that are ours. Ours not so much in a possessive way as a protective way." Some of the table nodded as Danny paused. He had to say this, he knew, but he still wasn't ready. "I haven't had a haunt since I left my hometown, a hometown that I used to protect. My sisters and my 2 friends are still my fraid, as are my sister's family, but it's a different sort of thing with them so far away and out of my haunt. Frostbite seems to think, and while I don't think he's wrong, that I've started counting many of you as part of my fraid. That's why when Tim was taken I noticed so quickly and went so feral about it." "Are we that important to you?" Damien asked in a small little voice. It made Danny look up. "Of course, chickadee. It might have started with the attack at WE, or perhaps you all are rather liminal. It likely made it easier for me to form that connection. And though it still feels sudden, I know..." "Danny," Bruce interrupted. "I think that there is something we need to show you before things go any further. It might clear up a few things." Danny tilted his head. Okay?" Bruce stood and moved behind Danny's wheelchair. "First, we need to go that way, and then we need to go down. Quite a bit down." The accessible lift to the Batcave was tucked away in an old servant's quarters. Half the children charged ahead to take it down first, while the other half ran upstairs to take the steady entrance. Danny watched them go curiously. "This is a little ominous," he pointed out. Not that he sounded at all bothered. Bruce chuckled. "Says the man who we followed a werewolf through a glowing portal for." "You have a point," Danny agreed. "But believe me that he's one of the better options." "Wolf was very polite," Bruce said. "Damien is sad that he missed out on a chance to meet a real werewolf." "I'm sure Wolf would happily meet Damien sometime." Bruce hummed, then gave a pause before he felt the need to add, "Damien is not allowed to insist he be turned." "No?" Danny asked through barely contained laughter. "I'm sure I can make that clear to Wolf. Though, logistically, I don't know if he could turn a living as a ghost, or if it even works like that. Oddly, it's never come up." "Oddly? You don't know my friend Tucker." "Ah." Bruce wanted to say he was sure there would be the chance to get to know this Tucker, but considering he was about to reveal who they were, he cleared his throat. "Well, I'm sure that Damien will ask many interesting questions if he gets the chance." "Doubtless," Danny said absently, distracted as he watched Bruce open the door to a disarming linen closet. Bruce stepped in and moved a stack of towels so that he could press a piece of wood to reveal a hidden keypad A moment later, the wall slid open as part of the elevator door. I think it's even more ominous now. Really? I think all mansions should have secret passages, Bruce argued as he pulled Danny into the elevator. Oh no, absolutely, Danny agreed. But it's never worked out well for me. My godfather was fond of secret passageways and experimenting on me. Bruce gripped the handles of his wheelchair tightly. Pardon? Danny hummed. My youngest sister is actually my clone. I just call her sister because it's easier. Yes, I imagine so, Bruce said tightly. Please know that if I ever meet your godfather, I'm going to punch him. Vlad would deserve it, Danny said. He was always a... Oh. Bruce pushed Danny out of the elevator in silence. The kids were gathered around the meeting table, each one nervous, though they showed it all differently. Even Jason, for all his feet were up on the table, was tapping the arm of the chair. Bruce needed this to go well for them. He needed this to go well for Damien and Tim especially. The older ones wouldn't have too large of an issue moving on, but Damien was already so attached, and it would be good for Tim and even Duke to have another adult to talk to. Bruce wasn't concerned about Danny leaving Tim stranded without help or training, but it would make things tense. Of course, Bruce would do everything he could to make things easy despite the awkwardness. This explains so much, Danny said, interrupting Bruce's thoughts. What? Bruce asked. Ancients, Danny gestured. That means you all. I met you before I met you. The first time I met you, I basically brooded us, Tim supplied shamelessly. Danny dropped his face into his hands. Brooded you. The first time I met you, I basically brooded you all. Well, not Bruce. You preened Bruce's little bat ears, Dick said. He stuck his pointer fingers on either side of his head and wiggled them around. I think we can say totally now that it was bird flirting. Bruce cleared his throat softly, not knowing what to say back to that. It had been, hadn't it? Ancients, no wonder I wanted to protect you all. And it's probably why I felt so safe with you. I'd been at, I guess, ancient status in the middle of your... Is lair? Offense? Is that only a rogue word? Depends on how much Bruce is brooding down here, Jason said. Or how long it's been since Timothy had slept, Damien agreed. Boys, Bruce sighed and started to push Danny over. Room at the table had already been made for the wheelchair, and Bruce stopped the chair there, holding back another sigh. Bruce looked at the seat next to Danny, who finally peeked up from out of his hands. And Jason? Danny said, voice softer. You were wary of me from the start, because you could feel what I was already. Jason shrugged, though the motion was a little hunched. Maybe, I guess. He kept trying to escape your featherly embrace, Tim said. Dick just embraced it. Says the one who went to sleep, Dick argued back. Tim stuck his tongue out at Dick. Yeah, well, Damien threatened to stab Danny. A threat I sincerely regret. Not that I would have harmed an animal, who turned out not to be an animal, Damien said, with a twisted little frown. It's all right, Damien. It had to be a really weird circumstance, Danny said. Cass smiled. Was fun. Danny squinted back. Is that why you found me right away? Yes. She cheated, Tim grumbled. So... Danny looked down at the table. How much research did you do on me? How much did you know before you knew? None, Bruce said instantly. Well, none after I made the children stop snooping in the limo after the ballet. Danny started. Wait, none? Jason gestured at Danny. See, even the guy in question thinks it's weird. Bruce sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose. Lucius looked into Danny before he was promoted to where he is now, And he looked into Danny even further when he was considering bringing Danny in to help with techs for us. He told us not to look. I trust Lucius. He would only say that if he was absolutely certain that Danny was no threat. He wanted me to work on tech for the bats? So cool. Wait, how much does Lucius even know? Bastard. I bet he somehow knows, like, everything. Danny grumbled and pulled out his phone. How much do you know? Hello, Phantom. Fuck. He knows everything, doesn't he? Bruce asked. When Danny sighed, Bruce added, This is why I trusted his word. That, and he threatened us if we scared away one of his best people in R&D, Tim added. That too, Bruce agreed. Jason, not unwisely, didn't like that as you grew closer to the family. But, to be blunt, I didn't want anything that I knew about you to be from a report. I wanted to actually get to know you. I didn't want to treat you like a case. The old man has gone soft, Jason stage whispered to Damien, who nodded gravely. Bruce gave them a fond glare. I don't know about that. If it hadn't been for Lucius who looked into Danny, things would have been different. And may I point out that Danny had been extremely honest with us and very trusting. Counterpoint, Tim said, and steepled his fingers. Stalking is my love language. Love languages are made up by a controlling, misogynistic tradwifer. Timbird, Jason said. Timbird. Jason mouthed more than said. Danny just frowned. So when I called you after when I pressed the panic button, and when you said that the bats had been in contact? Bruce glanced away towards the emptiness of the cave where the structure ended. He didn't know how to explain everything that was wrapped up in this secret. Being Batman was almost unexplainable at that point, but he had to at least try and work out some of the why. I didn't want to have the conversation like that. Not over the phone. It wasn't as important as making sure Tim was safe, or that you were safe. Of course, then, as soon as we could have that conversation, you collapsed. Oh, sure. Blame the guy in a wheelchair, Danny teased. He reached out and squeezed Bruce's hand. Hey, look at me. I get it. I was a hero too. There were times when I would have this same sort of conversation. I mean, I didn't have a cool lair to have it in or anything, but I get it. I don't blame you for not telling me sooner, or for trying to find the right moment. Thank you for telling me. Thank you, all of you. I know how much trust this is. Yeah, well, we're already trusting you with Hummingbird here, Jason said and crossed his arms. So it's just like the other side of it. Thank you, Jason, Danny said again, because he understood. Bruce didn't know how much of it was their first meeting, or being liminal, or just Danny being who he was, but Danny understood them. It was something that Bruce had given up the hope of finding in someone. Yet, now there Danny was, caring for Bruce's family, laughing with them, smiling. He was still there after blood and pain and suffering. He was accepting their other sides like it was nothing. Danny glanced at Bruce in mid-laugh over something that Damien was saying to Tim. He tilted his head, a smile still on his lips. What? Bruce twisted their fingers together. Just thinking about how sometimes when one gives up hope, it has a way of finding them. Yeah? Thinking about keeping hope around then? I think I would be a fool not to, Bruce said, and leaned in to press a kiss to Danny's lips. In the background, the children pretended to be grossed out or catcall, but Bruce ignored them. They would have to get used to it after all. It was time that the family had some real hope again. Okay, that was the end of chapter 27. We're going to go ahead and move on to chapter 28. Denny picked up one of the orchids from the bin that they had been soaking in. The little bastards were tricky to work with, but Danny felt like he had finally turned the corner with them. Some of the plants actually had blooms forming, which was an exciting change. Danny was maybe a little too amused that one of the plants with blooms was the ghost orchid, but he figured he was allowed to be. He set it gently back in its spot in the greenhouse. "You all better behave and actually bloom," he told the plants. "Right now, you all are the shame of the conservatory. I hope you know that. Look at everyone else. They're flourishing. Even the tropical corner is happy now that I have the right sort of mist set up for them. One would think that would be enough for y'all, too, but no. You also need weekly baths. Prima donnas. That's what you are." "Danny, are you insulting the orchids again?" "They deserve it, Hummingbird, and you know it," Danny said as he turned. He smiled at the pair standing on the edge of the portal. "Thank you again for helping, Wolf." "Yeah, thanks." Tim dropped smoothly from his ghost form to his living and as he exited the portal. "I'll see you in 2 weeks, right? For the duel with Pandora?" Wolf agreed with a little huff and gave them both a wave before he let the portal close. "A duel with Pandora?" Danny asked. He was so very proud of how far Tim had come in such a short time. Being a Robin helped, of course, but so much of it was also just Tim finding his way within the infinite realms. Danny hadn't even had to, or been able to, help much over the last few months. It was still unwise for him to stay transformed for too long. "Oh yeah, since she had a spear, and I used my quarterstaff, you know?" He practically bounded forward to take a cookie off the plate that Danny held up in offer. "Thanks, but she's giant and had 4 arms, so Wolf gets to be on my team too." "You better watch out for each of those 4 arms. She can be brutal." "But that's what's going to make it so fun." "You're getting cocky, Hummingbird," Danny said. He reached out to brush back some of Tim's hair. It had gotten long. "It's a good look on you." Tim shoved the cookie quickly into his mouth so that he could bat away Danny's hands. "Dad, stop." "No," Danny said cheerfully. "If I'm your ghost dad, then I'm going to be proud of your ghost progress. Give me another month or 2 and we'll do a real tour of the realms so that I can show you off." "But your health is better every day," Danny said. "I'm going to be better than I have been in years soon, with the way that Bruce and Alfred both hover. Moving into the manor has been the best thing for my health." "And Bruce's too," Tim said as he took another cookie. "You're making him actually sleep in some. And he goes to work more just so that he can stare at your ass when you're working." "Tim! It's true!" Then he rolled his eyes and picked up the pruning shears. His shrimp roses had thrived a bit too much in the new settings and needed work. "Speaking of Bruce being better, when are you going to talk to him? It has been months now." Tim dropped down into a seat and chewed morosely at the cookie. "You know why I haven't." "I do. That's why I didn't bother you before now, sweetheart," Danny agreed. "You weren't wrong that Bruce had been dealing with a lot of different things, and he did need time to be able to compartmentalize them and work through them one by one." Tim winced. Those few weeks of him actually dealing with me having died were not pretty. "He did get a bit stifling." "A bit? All right, a lot," Danny said with a chuckle. "But I think he's gotten through the list now." Tim gave a little snort and started picking at his nails. "So what, I just throw another thing at him now that he's better?" Then he came and crouched down in front of Tim. He reached out to stop the picking before the boy made himself bleed with the nervous tick. "So, you be honest with him about a really, really big secret that you've been keeping, because he deserves to know. I get why you waited, but it's time, Tim. I'm here with you. I'll be next to you the whole time, and I'll still be here when it's dinner time, and the breakfast the next day, and the next day." "I get it, my dads are sleeping together." Danny laughed and pressed another cookie into Tim's hands as he stood. "How horrible for you." "What's horrible for Tim?" Bruce asked, almost absently, as he wandered into the conservatory with his attention on his tablet. "That you and I are sleeping together," Danny explained. He pressed a kiss to Bruce's cheek and took the tablet as he whispered, "Go sit down with your son." "Right," Bruce said with a raised eyebrow. "How horrible for Tim." Isn't it, having two dads together? Danny said with a pointed motion at Tim from behind Bruce's back. A truly tragic life, Bruce agreed somberly as he sat down next to Tim. They looked good there in those wickered chairs surrounded by the growing greenery. They looked happy, despite Tim's nervous mood. Danny pondered if he could talk Alfred into letting them have lunch out here one day, like an indoor picnic. Tim looked down at his hands. You know that I do think of you as my dad, right? I do, and I'm always honored, Bruce said, brows pinched together in confusion. He was clearly trying to work out where this question came from. I know there were times that I more than messed up with you, and no, it's not about that, Tim said quickly. We've talked about that. All right. Bruce glanced from Tim to Danny. Is this about you calling Danny your dad also, even though we aren't married yet? Not as formal as Damien, waiting for it to be all official or anything. I mean, you two are already engaged. Besides, Danny was my ghost dad first. The humor made Bruce relax a little. That is true. Something that Damien will always be jealous of, I fear. Yeah, well, that, might not be all he'll be jealous of, Tim said. I'm afraid you really have me at a loss here, chum. What's bothering you? I promise we'll work through it, whatever it is, even if it means more therapy. Yeah, it might mean more therapy, Tim mumbled. He glanced at Danny, and Danny made sure to smile back. It seemed to help, because Tim finally started actually getting to the matter. So, when I went to Danny's for those 2 days, before I was taken, it was because I learned something that I had trouble processing, I guess. And it was no problem to help you work through it, Danny assured Tim. He did, too. I was going to come and talk to you about it that Sunday when I was taken by the court, Tim said. Danny had to resist the urge to growl at the name. But then, obviously all of that happened, and then there were a lot of other things to deal with, and I guess I've also been putting it off, which I hope you're not mad about. Telling me whatever it is now is all right, Bruce assured Tim. You're right that there has been a lot to deal with. Tim sighed. It's just that, you were already my dad, but the others were teasing me, and I got curious, and so, of course, I looked into it because I'm me, which is a mess, I know, but Bruce reached out to stop Tim from picking too hard at his fingers. Tim, breathe. Right, Tim said before he listened and took a deep breath. He let it out slowly. What I'm saying is that I ran our DNA. You're actually biologically my dad. Bruce blinked several times, like he was trying to reboot his mind over what he had just heard. Then he covered his mouth, so not to laugh. This was a very serious moment, after all. Then suddenly from the doorway, The fuck, old man? Did you sleep with a married woman? It wasn't the first time I did. She was separated from Jack at the time, Bruce said, head swiveling from Tim to Jason at the door to Danny and back to Jason. And I, of course, wore protection. I really don't actually want to hear about you sleeping with my mom, Tim said with a wince. Whatever happened, it doesn't change that I'm, biologically. Bruce reached over and pulled Tim into a hug. You're my son. Biologically or not, you are always my son, and this does nothing to change that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I didn't know, that she didn't tell me if she knew. I'm sorry that I wasn't there for you all of those years. This is sickeningly sweet, Jason said, then winced when Danny elbowed him. Leave them alone. This is a big thing for both of them, Danny said softly. Damon is going to freak out in both bad and good ways, Jason warned, just as softly. Danny nodded. I know. Tim talked about it some. I'll help handle him. Sure, Jason rubbed at his side as he looked back at the father and son pair. Christ, all those jokes, and they were actually 2 peas in a pod. Christ, all those jokes, and they really are 2 peas in a pod. Danny hummed. Jason was right, but he also wasn't. There was certainly much of Bruce that came through in Tim's personality, but Tim had grown up and removed from that. He had very much grown into a young man of all his own. This was just a new connection to explore. Come on, I'll go with you to pick up Leanne. Those 2 could use some time alone. Who said you were invited to come pick up Leanne? Jason asked, even as he turned to start walking. Leanne, because she loves me, Danny teased. He traded the pruning shears for his cane and the small table at the door. He didn't really need the cane much right then, but he'd gotten used to having it with him over the last few months. It was a rather stylish-looking cane that Bruce had commissioned for him, what with the swooping Huron head that made up the handle. Yeah, her grandpa Danny, Jason said. She just loves you right now because of the nightlight you gave her, which, thanks, by the way. She's never slept better. Danny nodded. Good. I hoped it would help. The ghosts in it love eating nightmares. You're fucking with me. Just a little ghost? Itty bitty. Danny. It's basically the intelligence of a hamster. Danny, tell me you're fucking with me and that you did not plug a ghost into my daughter's wall. Danny grasped dramatically. Jason, are you being anti-ghost? Danny! Danny just laughed and kept heading for the doorway. Maybe it was a little mean to pick on Jason, but that was slowly becoming part of how they interacted with each other. It was just a little piece of the puzzle that was Jason and Tim and every single one of the children, official and unofficial. It was all just a little piece of what this wonderful family that Danny was becoming a part of. It was all just a little bit of the life that Danny was going to do his damnedest to live. Okay, that was the end of chapter 28, the last chapter of this. Real quick, there is actually a note at the end that I want to include because I think it's really cute. It says, and yes, there is a little blob ghost in the nightlight. Danny cleared it with Roy before he gave the present to Leanne. So, yay! We love Roy going over Jason's head to do ghost-related things. Anyway, yeah. So this concludes a reading of A Thing with Wings by PaperPuffin. These were the last few chapters. I freaking love them. This was great. Also very in character for Danny to just be like, fine, if you want me to, and then just collapse on the floor. I feel like that's very in character for him. And I'm almost positive that it's actually happened sometime in the show or something similar. He's just been like, fuck it. And then just gone. But yeah, I really loved this story. I loved it so much. It was so cute. I loved how they added onto the ghost lore, and they actually gave Danny chronic pain, which in my opinion just makes sense. And I love the representation that it gives and how people actually deal with it. Because objectively, it does suck. I don't personally have chronic pain, but man, I'm just ever so slightly sore most of the time, and even that's like, so I can't imagine what people go with that do have chronic pain like this. So the fact that we actually get to see someone that I would hope we all look up to, with Danny Phantom being the hero that he was and everything, it's really cool to just see that and to just have that representation in media, because heaven knows we don't get it in mainstream media. But yeah, this is great. I love that Jason and Danny are getting along better now. I love that Bruce and Tim are finally connecting on the whole biologically related thing. It's so great, and I actually do really like how there's a bit of like open to imagination in this. It's really, really cool. But yeah. But this is the last of this, so I really hope you all enjoyed. I know I certainly did. And please do check out this work, because there's actually a whole bunch of art for it. It's also, so if you go to AO3, it's a second like chapter there is art with it. And if you go onto Tumblr and find this post, it also has a whole bunch of art linked to it in there as well. And it is really good art. Some of the art actually inspired the thumbnail for this series, so I really do recommend you checking it out because it is so freaking cool. And I'm pretty sure PaperPuffin actually made some of the art for it as well, so it just gives a little more to the story, and I think it's really cool. So please do check that out, and of course share your thoughts on this golden piece. And again, do not forget to reach out to the original author, always linked in the description, to express your thanks. In addition, let me know if you have any recommendations. I have just finished this, and I do actually have a list of recommendations that I need to go through, but I am always looking to add to my hoard. So thank you all for listening, and have a wonderful day, night, middle of the morning, whatever time it is for you. And thank you so much. And of course, thank you for listening to this Dragon's Hoard.